Hello, everybody, and happy Tuesday to you. If you're in the state of Colorado, you guys be careful out there. It is snowing and the roads are messy out there. So please be careful out there. And if you're sitting at home warm, sitting back watching your YouTube channel, you're watching us, thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys already know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. And if you're tuning in from any other spots, do me a favor, head on over to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you've been notified every time that we drop a new episode. And I, as always, got another amazing guest for you guys. You guys are going to have a blast. She's going to take you on a journey. I promise you. So get your questions, comments ready. And before I bring her up here, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, you guys help me welcome my next guest, Miss Holly. Holly, how we doing?
Good, Tony. Nice to see you.
Hey, same here, same here. As we talked about, as we said before, happy holidays to you. Thank you for being here today.
I'm excited for the new year, and thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Now, before we get started, tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Great. Yes. So my name is Holly McCusker. I'm originally from Boston, but I've lived in Florida, and now I reside in North Carolina, a nice halfway point between the two areas. My career background, I started out in education. I was a high school teacher and a college professor. I built programs and curriculum for a private school, and it was a joy to work with students, high school students, and really shape their lives. And then I moved into the relationship industry. So I started out as a matchmaker, and that was a really interesting shift from teaching high school kids, as you can imagine. It became a very, social and also a great place to learn, not just about my clients, but about myself as well. So started out in matchmaking, but what I really learned quickly in matchmaking is that my clients really needed coaching, relationship coaching. They needed to get out of their own ways. They needed to let go of limiting beliefs, shift their mindset, all these different things in order to be successful. Now, I did have those clients who were ready and they were open to the process, and they came from a place of curiosity, but that wasn't always the case. So I studied the clients who were struggling and recognized the need for coaching. So I brought coaching I worked for the largest matchmaking company in the US, and I brought coaching to them. And I said, we really need to implement this into the program. We need all of our clients to be successful in one way or another. So they granted me the joy of building a coaching program for them, which was amazing. And we really saw a difference with the client journey. Just in this past year alone, I've taken all I've learned through the almost decade of relationship experience and built my own company. It's called Love Prescriptions. And at Love Prescriptions, we work with both the consumer and businesses. Our goal is to really get this emotional awareness, emotional intelligence gap with the dating industry. Like, we really want to provide a service where clients can come to our Relationship Institute to learn about themselves, to learn about how they show up in dating, to look at some of their blind spots, and to really peel back the layers and understand who they are in this journey so they can be better successful in dating and relationships. So that's where we are. It's been almost a year of building this Love Prescriptions, and we have tons of great content, courses, group coaching, and individual coaching that we offer our clients.
I love that. And it gets me started thinking about, because dating, coming from a place where I have tried dating, right? I pretty much I've given up. I was like, this is not for me, right? But what I did find that when I was very active in trying to date, there was a lot of people who said that they were ready, but hadn't healed from past relationships, and there was a lot of damage being done. And look, and I'm guilty of it too, right?
Yeah, we all are, Tony.
Right, and so how important is it, incorporating coaching into the dating industry? that the individuals heal before they try to go into a relationship?
Well, I think the divorce rate like speaks to that, right? 50% almost, and then second is 67% and 73 for third marriages, right? So we're not succeeding with relationships, dating. People are burnt out on the apps. It is really of the utmost that we learn about ourselves so we can actually know how to choose a partner. A lot of people go into relationships looking for people to accept them. We call that bids for acceptance. And then they don't really think about what they truly need in the relationship. Then they get into the relationship and they're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what I needed. But you
Right.
didn't set it up that way. That's not how you navigated your search. You maybe were searching for superficial qualities over what I think is the most important relationship core values to understand about yourself. You were letting pain and suffering and get in the way, because if you're looking for someone else to accept you and you haven't accepted yourself, we see there's healing to be done there, right? And so with all of that, I think like a lot of clients I see coming in have not healed from either the death of a spouse or the grief of a breakup.
Yeah.
And I did develop a breakup grief course, which I think everybody could start there, because I think the majority of people have lingering grief that they haven't resolved in relationship, right? Because if we look at the 5 stages of grief, the 2 last stages are so hard for people, right? To actually feel the pain and then to accept it and find purpose in what it meant, the relationship and how to move forward. And I think a lot of people skip those last 2 stages and then they go into the relationship looking for someone to fill that void. And then we see the same patterns being presented again in the relationships dynamics.
Can I add to that just a little bit?
Yeah.
Because just to put a little bit more information onto what the 5 stages of grief really are, right? You know what I'm saying? Because they were actually written for those that were going through a terminal illness. It was never written for people who were actually grieving the loss of someone, right? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, and this is, I'm just want to add to it because there's so many more stages of grief to there. Right? Um, I love to use the 5 stages as pillars. I like to call them the 5 pillars of grief, right? Because every stage you can add to it.
Yes.
There's sections in there that relate to, what I'm saying, the anger or the place of acceptance or the place of bargaining. Now that can seem like a pretty stable place to be, right? It's so in depth,
Yes.
right? And I know that you already know this, especially dealing with people who are carrying grief and things like that. Like people, people can get pretty messy in that area, right? And the problem is or the challenge. I'm not going to say the problem. The challenge is learning how to articulate those multitude of emotions that come along with it, separate them because they can get pretty messy. They can get intertwined.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I'm gonna speak from my own place when I say this because I never want to generalize anyone. Because I don't know. But for me, there was a lot of blame. There was a lot of self-sabotage. There was a lot of looking for the red flags, right? You know what I'm saying? Constantly searching, like, because I never knew what people's intentions to me were. So, what I'm saying? I was constantly always 20 steps ahead. I'm constantly playing chess.
Yeah.
Right. I got to protect myself.
Right. Protection is, yep, that happens a lot after breakups, that need to defend and protect.
And so, and I do find that can be really hard to open up and be vulnerable to people when you've been in survival mode for so long. It becomes habitual, right? And 2 wrongs never make a right because you never know what another person's intentions are towards you. I think we set ourselves up to look towards that and go, oh, we can always point the finger like, oh no,
That's
they're trying to do that to me. They're trying to get me, right?
Yep.
Because I know for me, I did that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm better off on my own. So, I would totally destroy the whole relationship. And I hurt a lot of people in the process. That's the reason why I took the time for myself. I said, you know what? No more. I don't want to hurt anyone else until I've healed.
Yeah.
Now, how important is that, right? Because you've seen it on those ends, and it's a very intimate touch that you have to be able to walk with those individuals in that area.
Yeah, I think, it's so important to heal that relationship or however many breakups you haven't healed, but I also think everything typically goes back to the original wound, which most likely comes from childhood, right? So if
Mm,
we get in touch with our origin wounds and what like really this stems from, we try to heal those first. That way, when we get into a new relationship, we are more aware of what might trigger us, what might show up for us in relational patterns, how it shaped our attachment style. And we can share this with a partner and they can hold space and compassion for it because they're on the same path of growth and healing. And instead of a conflict becoming a war or something to win, it becomes a place to resolve and a place to help heal each other.
I understand that. I can't even put that one out on the screen right there. But thank you. Happy 2025 um, and everything. So let me ask a question because what I found that in a lot of relationships that people have not healed and things like that, it can get misconstrued, right? And what I mean, I had someone tell me, and I even brought this up to them, that this individual was going through something, and the lady that he was with, didn't know how to consult him except for with her body.
Mhm.
Um, and I came to the conclusion, I could be wrong, but a lot of times people do this is because they don't know how to do anything else, and that was all that they had to offer. Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
true? Is that a true thing?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's probably worked for them in the past. And it's also, it sounds like the example you're giving is that they're trying to, um, you know, either heal something for the other person or be accepted themselves in this example through what they know how to do because they don't actually know how to hold space and hold the feelings for somebody else. Like they kind of repeat what they've learned or what has worked for them in the past, but it's probably not serving the relationship to grow.
Yeah, and I found that and this is why I've set boundaries. I've had to set boundaries because of the simple fact of it. For me, it's a matter of respect, right? And understanding the power that comes behind that. But I think it's more respect for myself, right? You know what I'm saying? Not to be freely free with, you know what I'm saying, with my body,
Mhm,
my you know what I'm saying? I know it
mhm.
sounds strange and everything because the whole misconception of men is like men go out there and do whatever, right? And I don't like that. I don't like that term. I really don't
Mhm.
because there are men out there that are just like, look, I want so much more out of life that and it does come down to a matter of respect. Find other ways of giving yourself instead of being physical. Like me, I grew up understanding courtship, right? And it took me a long time to get back to that, right? And what had happened was, I was like, you know what? I A courtship gives me the opportunity to get the chance to get to know you, right?
Mhm.
To see where you are, as far as mentally, where you at spiritually, emotionally, right? And see where you are at in your healing stage as well. Have you started? Are you in the middle? Who are you becoming? It gives me the chance to do that without without any physical commitment.
Tony, I love everything you're saying. I think it's beautiful. I think a lot of people don't lead that way, unfortunately.
This is true. This is
Mhm.
true. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I don't understand why. I mean, in a way, I do get it, but in so many ways, I don't. Right. And I want to get your thoughts on there. Like, I know that there's other people out there like myself.
Yeah.
I do.
Yes, I
And
believe so too.
right,
It's just
you
not
know,
a
and
lot.
just not a lot. But also, like the biggest thing about it is going, okay, if I set these boundaries, if I set these rules and everything, if I find that this does not work for me, you haven't lost anything, but you've gained a friend,
Mhm.
right? You know what I'm saying? And and I think that that is the important part, building a friendship, building, having those building blocks, getting a chance to get to, um, having a chance to say no.
And what you're providing is a sense of safety and security for the foundation of the relationship. And a lot of people that, even though it's a beautiful thing, aren't used to it, so it's not comfortable. So they may,
Mhm,
like, question or fear it, not because it's not ultimately what they want, but it's because it's not what they know. And so if they're utilizing, sex to gain a partner's attention, that's just something they've learned in the past that they think needs to be repeated, or it needs that's how they're going to be accepted. So
mhm,
unraveling that misconception, and, like, somebody like you could offer that to them if they're ready to receive. But, that's again, they need to be doing the healing work to get to that place of understanding.
mhm.
They don't have to give themselves away in that respect until it's time.
Hmm. It leads me to my next question because you said you unpacked a lot right there. And when it comes down to when you work with people who have lost spouses,
Mhm.
is there ever a point where, I mean, because I know they do. I know people who have gotten into relationships after loss of a spouse and things like that. And, it's taught me something, um, because I have seen the pain afterwards. I've talked to widowers, I've talked to widows, etc. There's still a huge gap of pain that's still there. And my thought is that, if you could have somebody that truly understands that, it can work, right? So as someone who coaches and works in the dating field and help guide people along that way, how does one get to a place to where they're ready to be vulnerable again?
It's so tricky because especially if, you lost the love of your life,
Mhm,
it's very hard to hold the space for that relationship while creating a new one and not try to recreate what you had, you know? So it's really important to grieve that relationship, honor it, but not try to replace it. So
mhm,
knowing like the next person isn't going to be a replica of your spouse that you lost, and you know the person, whether they're also a widow or not, needs to have an understanding of what that looks like for um, the widow, because otherwise it gets very tricky with, everybody wants to feel important in a relationship and wants to feel, especially if you enter into marriage again, that they're your one. So if there's never that opportunity, right, there has to be a space for the grieving spouse and a new space for a new partner. And I think going through that stage of acceptance and understanding we had this incredible love story, all the good things that came from it, and unfortunately, it ended, but I'm ready to move on and create something beautiful, and if I have that opportunity again, I'm very fortunate. It comes to that intention, purpose, really understanding, because if you haven't fully understood why this has happened, or you can't, get over the loss, it's gonna make it very difficult for you to truly, authentically let somebody new into your life.
Mm, I love that. I love that. And I have a more difficult question to ask, um, because what I found, like, and again, I'm speaking from personal experience here when I say, dealing with people, and I tell them that I've lost a child, right? Oh yeah, I get that's what I get right there, right? They automatically look at me like I give people the chance to get to know me first, right? I never right off the back tell them that, what I'm saying, like I have no parents or anything like that. But when they start going, oh, I would love to meet your parents, I have to go, I don't have any parents. Oh, I would love to meet your family. I don't, my younger brother's gone. You know what I'm saying? My sister lives 1,750 miles away and I love her to death. But the possibilities of you meeting her are very slim to none unless we take a trip, but we're going to see when we get to that point because I'm just not going to introduce anybody to my sister. My sister just cuts you out. Like, that's my brother. You know what I'm saying? I love my sister to death. Um, but when I do mention that part, it's such the expression on their face is like, wow, I have kids and this person has a lot of baggage. Are they going to be able to accept my kids after all of that? And there's a challenge there, right? Um, especially as a bereaved father, because inside, I love children. I do. I love babies. I love picking with the babies. I love the toddlers and things like that. I love the chance to get to know and watch kids grow. But the challenge, although I do love that, it is still hard, right? Because deep down inside, I know that at any given moment, and this is the part that scares me because it's happened so many times. At any given moment, you can take them away from me. So there's a fear of being attached to someone with children, but as I can understand the fear on their end as well to a certain extent. Now, I don't want to get your thoughts on that. I want to, that is my question. Have you ever seen that? And how does one come to a place to be able to go, okay, I'm a little bit more open because for me it's a step by step thing,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the reason like you saw that look on my face, and I want to just kind of go back a minute because oh, I'm hearing an echo myself back. Okay, so my marriage ended, and then my husband took his own life, and my
Mm,
kids were very young. Um, they were 2 and 4 at the time, and we all went to grief counseling. And I had a beautiful love story. So while in the end it ended tragically, I still had all of those beautiful years and loved him very much. And he was the father of my children. It was, the image of the life you envisioned was gone. But I do remember sitting in those grief sessions and thinking, I don't know what I would do if I lost a child. I've lost both of my parents in the same year. I dealt with the death of my husband and I have my children. And I know that I would be resilient to get through it and find reason and purpose and everything in it, but I do think it's one of the hardest things to really understand, get through. So I do have a tremendous amount of feeling and empathy for anybody who loses a child. I know people who have lost a child and it is devastating. I also know people who have lost a child and have really gone on to do incredible things with the memory and, finding purpose and meaning in it. And
mhm,
really like similar to me with the losses, it really helps me tap into my gratitude even more for what I do have. So I think partnering with somebody who maybe hasn't had the exact same experience, but similar that can understand the pain. And again, know that the grief never ends. It just, you go through, it's linear. It's not linear. You go through all the stages at different times, right? So knowing like this is not going to ever go away. It could be like 20 years later and something triggers a memory and it's like you feel like you're back to the day it happened. So
mhm,
I think it really comes down to just making sure you're aligning with people who have the same values and who really have a similar outlook on life and can understand the purpose and meaning in unfortunate and tragic happenings in life.
I like that. I definitely like that. And it's, I would tell you, that's part of the reason why I stopped dating. It really is. Because I'm still learning, I'm still growing.
Yeah.
And there's times where I don't understand it. And there's times where I knew I need to sit down with it to have a better grasp on it. And it's constantly, consistently being that way, right? And like you said, there's some of us out here that would take that and find purpose in it. I would like to say I found a pretty good purpose with mine.
I would say so.
Um, just to be of service to other people. But now here's the tricky part about it, right? Because trauma bonding, right? That trauma bonding when you're trying to meet someone. And I think you and I talked about this before, right? Like the biggest challenge for me, I meet people and people are like, these women are like, oh, I want to get the chance to get to know you. And then within the next few sentences, they're talking about their trauma. They're talking about their addiction. They're talking about their abuse. And in that moment, they don't understand that I understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say anything. I won't say what I do or anything like that. I never lead off with that because I never want people to go, oh, he's a grief coach. Let's go ask some questions. No, I want to get the chance to get to know you. Right.
Yes.
And so I let the conversation dictate what my next moves are. Again, I play chess. I'm always 20 steps ahead. Right. So I need to learn how to pivot, but also remain respectful of myself and of that individual. Right. Because in my mind, if you don't know how to control it, you can do a lot more damage. When you don't understand when a person is trauma bonding with you and the vulnerability that they are presenting, male or female, you can do more damage than good because of the simple fact of when that bond is starting to crumble apart, you will find that you have nothing in common with it, right? And so now you have to come up with an excuse to hurt this individual or vice versa, right? And so, and that's why I set those boundaries. And I go, once I realize that, and it happens for me 99.9% of the time.
Yeah.
So it's only a small fraction. And I'm just like, I'm used to it though, right?
Yeah.
I'm so used to it. And so I just go, you know what? That's cool. So I tell them, after I realize that, like, hey, I can't do this, right? Because I would be a very bad person if I took advantage of you. And I don't want to do that. So what I can do, I can give you someone to vent to. I can share my gift with you, but I can't be physical with you. I have to set boundaries. That way, it's a matter of respect for myself and them, right? And it suits me just fine. One thing I understand about this gift of grief of mine is that it's a very lonely road. It's a very lonely path that we set upon, but it's worth it, right? To be able to walk somebody to their next destination. I'd rather see you heal and be ready for the next individual that comes for you than to take advantage of you and hold that individual up.
Well, I'm not going to try to convince you, Tony, but I do think there's a space for you where you meet someone who is also on the healing journey, but is very self-aware of where they are. They're doing the work on themselves individually, and then they're open to doing the work in their relationship. So maybe not now, timing isn't right, but I wouldn't close the door entirely.
I never closed the door, right? Like I never closed the door. I'm just very cautious how I
I
step,
know. I
right?
know.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like I have a better understanding how fragile grief can be to an individual, and
Yeah.
so I always want to remain humble and and always respect the grief, and respect the individual that's going through it, right? I understand that I have a role to play, right? It all depends on what they're requiring of me.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a servant. I'm very in tune with this gift of grief. So that's why I have really no expectations. I'm like, I understand people come and go all the time, right? I really do. And I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Well, and people come into our lives for a reason, right?
Right, right,
So,
right.
and not every relationship is going to work out, but every relationship is going to teach us something about
Mhm.
ourselves. And so maybe just the act of trying is not put so much pressure on the outcome, but more on the how I'm feeling along the journey and knowing like it's okay if the relationship ends. I mean, it's painful, of course, but it just brings us maybe that much closer to the person we're supposed to be with.
It could be, like I'm still growing, I'm still learning and things like that. Like I don't have it all down packed. I promise you I
Yep.
don't. But now, I want to go back a little bit, and dive deeper into something that you said, because you lost your husband to suicide,
Yeah.
and then you lost both of your parents in the same year.
Mm. Mhm.
So my question would be, having to go with that and being now a single mother raising children and things like that, how did you find passion to be able to help those who were dating, along their journey while, in healing in yours?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so the loss of my husband, so first the marriage ended and then a year later he took his life. And so I grieved the ending of the marriage and then his life, so there were
Mhm.
two griefs there. And my children were very young, so I didn't move. There's no such thing as properly, but anywhere near where I needed to go in the grief process, right? I didn't fully grieve that, and probably not until I would say this past year, believe it or not. It was 17 years ago. And so, but I always was a lover of love. I was always very fascinated with relationships and how they worked and didn't work. And one of the things I wanted to like really learn about my relationship, my marriage, is how could you love somebody and have that much love? And there was some codependency. I see it now, but have so much, be so intertwined and something end. And what I came to really understand through getting into this field of relationship work is we can really love somebody, but if we don't put the work into understanding ourselves and then understanding the work into the relationship, we will not sustain the relationship. A relationship can't just be sustained on love. Like we have to be willing to work through those challenging moments. We have to be willing to grow through the tough times. And my marriage ended right after I had children. So those were some challenging times, right? We had
Mhm.
a lot of challenges at once. And given like the way it ended, it made me understand we didn't know how to navigate through the tough waters. We didn't really understand ourselves and we didn't understand what the dynamic in the relationship that was happening.
Mhm.
And there was also a little bit of an anxious avoidant attachment loop going on. So I didn't understand any of that at the time. I was young. But now I clearly understand what it takes to first align with a partner because and that I think we often go into these situations aimlessly. We're just looking at superficial qualities often. We don't tend to know what makes us feel connected to a partner in a relationship. So I really love it when I can shine a light on that for my clients and simply ask the question, what are your relationship core values? And I can't tell you how many times, especially after people have spent tens of thousands of dollars on matchmaking, have no clue of what that means. And so, often that's because they're seeking something outside themselves to fill a void,
Mhm.
or they're looking for acceptance. And so I really get clear on what truly makes a relationship work for you. How do you feel
Right.
safe, secure? all of those things. What makes you feel connected to somebody? So then once we can get into that, it really helps people with the dating process because they're no longer just throwing darts at a board like whoever wants to go out with me, or, it's not about rejection or acceptance anymore. It's about what truly feels good to me and who do I see being able to, if I want a marriage for a lifetime, who am I going to be able, who's going to do this work with me? So really teaching people about that, I think sets them up for success. And I've always, as a teacher, as a parent, I've just always wanted the best for everybody. And I've always wanted people to just have the love that they really desire in their life. So being able to do this work and lead people to a better place in themselves and to attract the right partner is, I couldn't ask for a better journey.
I love that. I love that. Now, I have a question because there's been two things that's always been a factor, right? And I don't know how, what's more important, or both equally important. Um, Having the atmosphere, right? Creating the atmosphere for that relationship to work and grow, not just individually, but as partners, right?
Yes.
Be able to navigate, but also how, as well as the environment that you're in. Is the relationship a product of their environment? Because if we look at that, right, a person can be in a very, very destructive environment, and the relationship can seem kind of toxic because you're both in survival mode in those different areas. So that is my question. What's important, or are they both equally important to have a healthy relationship?
Well, I mean, I think they're intertwined, right? Because I think it comes down to what you truly need. And if
Mm,
you're in this environment that's not safe or secure, and those are things that you value or want or need, then it's not gonna work. And I know people, obviously, it's easier said than done. I mean, people are in situations and, that they don't want to be in, and sometimes the pain of leaving that situation feels harder than the pain of staying, right? Because I think the pain of the unknown of what we don't know
mhm,
feels a feels more challenging than the pain of what we do know. And again, there's always circumstances that keep people in situations because they feel they have to stay in those relationships. But, ideally, somebody getting clear on their healing journey, understanding why they are accepting relationships that don't serve them and are and often problematic or traumatic or, toxic,
mhm.
understanding like what's led them to that. And again, that's where the individual work comes in to help them potentially leave that situation if both partners aren't willing to work towards, a healthier relationship.
Mm. I like that. I definitely like that. And that is, I find truly, I find it truly fascinating. I'm curious. I'm always curious, right? Because I'm always willing to learn how to be a better version of myself. But again, I can only speak for myself, right? Because I've had to heal from a lot of bad relationships, and a lot of times. Thank you, Rachel. Yes, I am. I got on the red and black today, with the hat that matches. Yeah,
Woohoo!
got the hat to match, right? So uh, now my question would be, my question would be, in the process of doing all, working on ourselves, how easy it is to slip back into necessity, right? You know what I'm saying? And what I mean by that, because some people are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
It's so easy to slip back into a necessity, right? You know what I'm saying? Because when a person when a person has had childhood abuse, or abuse in general, words would say one thing, actions would lead to another thing. And when an individual is going into a relationship, a healthy relationship, and not understanding it, I think the need for chaos actually, in more cases, will override it.
Because it's familiar. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Um,
familiar. And again, that goes back to the individual healing.
that makes sense. It
Mhm.
definitely makes sense because I've seen people get out of a very abusive narcissistic relationship that they've been in it for quite some time, that that's all they've ever known for years and years and years and years and years. And so when they finally do break free, because they know deep down that it's not healthy, right?
Yeah.
They know it's not good. Trust me, I know. I've been in one, had to walk away from it, and I paid the consequences for that one pretty good. But at the end, I was like, I'm so much better, right? I can endure this, I can heal from this over here, but I just need to get away from that. Now, as a man, I won't say that it was easy. It was definitely challenging. But what I find that with women, because in most cases, the emotional reaction that most women have causes that attachment, right? They get so used to it, and I think that comes from their childhood as well.
Mhm.
And it could make it real difficult to seek out, or yeah, to seek out something healthy, right? Because you don't. How do you teach people what a healthy relationship looks like after all of that?
Right. I mean, we do a lot of that in coaching, but I mean, I can speak for myself, and you do tend to attract, if you still have healing work to do, you do tend to attract a partner that resembles the caretaker that you had the most difficult relationship with.
Hmm.
So my father was avoidant, and I did not have a great relationship with him. So I have to be careful about attracting avoidant partners because they represent my father. And what happens in these cycles is that you're not just trying to get the acceptance of the partner, right? You're constantly doing whatever it is to get the acceptance of the avoidant partner. It's like you're trying to get the acceptance of your father in that same cycle. So you have to discern what you're doing. Like, who do I really need? What do I really need in this situation?
Hmm.
If you find yourself, like, you could step outside the emotion of it and you can look at it and say, what am I doing? And you can discern, is this me looking for the acceptance of this particular person, or is this me looking to grieve, or not grieve, but heal the wound created from childhood that is so deep and that continues to come up in relationships, right?
Hmm.
When you can start, like, getting eyes on that and becoming more self-aware, then you can do some self-talk and you can do some reframing, and that's where self-compassion and self-trust really comes in, and that's where really understanding the need to strengthen relationship with self. We don't put a lot of time into that, and it's really essential that we create this strong bond with ourselves, so we don't settle or we don't allow people to treat us in ways that we don't deserve or don't desire. And we
Hmm.
do speak up for what we need, and we do understand what we
I like that. I like that. Now, here's the one for the fellas out there, right? The mama's boys.
need.
Yeah, I think you know where this one is going, right? Because we I have seen the mama's boys that have been so dependent on mama and things like that, that they often find a mate that mimics that,
Yep. Yeah.
right? How challenging is that to get the mama's boy to begin to break away and understand the importance of having a suitable partner in life, right? And saying, hey, this is not your mom, right? And getting them to understand that, hey, right now, mom is on the back burner. This is your first priority.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was explaining this to someone, right? Because to me, I view life in a way of chess. Um, and I always say, I was actually telling someone this. I told him, I said, when I'm in a relationship, the key to every move that I make is to always protect my queen. Right? You know what I'm saying? Because if you can't get to my queen, you can't checkmate me. But I also understand the importance of the queen. Like I may be the head, but she's always the neck. I can't move without her.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And it's a partnership. Everything that I do has to come through the movement of my queen. Right? And so that was me. Right? My goal is to always protect, provide, to make sure that I move in a way to where she feels protected, to make sure that she is um, always in a place of security,
Yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying? Because I know if she feels secure, she'll always be submissive, right? She'll always have a traditional mindset when it comes down to me,
Mhm.
right? And so you know, and I think I want to be careful how I word this because I don't want to disrespect any man out there who have attachments with their mama. Their mama is, moms are a man's first love, regardless. Right? You know what I'm saying? They're the nurturer. They are first love, right? You know what I'm saying? Because that's the first one that's ever said "I love you" to us, right? That's the first one that's ever shown us any sort of caring or nurturing behavior. So of
Yes.
course we have that attachment with them, but it's being able to detach
Mhm.
at a certain point. So for those who are still attached to that mama figure, how hard is it for them to have a nurturing relationship with their father without having that or their mother without having that mindset, like I just explained?
Yeah, I think it's gonna depend on, like, who's continuing the like, who's creating the or continuing the dynamics, right? Because is
Mhm.
it the mother that won't detach as well? Because we see that. Like, the mother
Yeah,
wants to
yeah.
be and if that's the case, then we can almost understand why the man cannot speak up for himself. He's probably always been told what to
Mm,
do, what to feel, what to think. And so is it the case of the mom? Because a healthy mom would say, it's time for you to, make your wife your queen. She's first,
mhm,
right? But if the mom isn't able to do that, so the son feels burdened to the mom and can't detach because he's afraid to create a boundary and say, this is my wife, she comes first now. So I think it really depends on the dynamic in the relationship. But again, I think people do tend to attract that as well. So they may attract somebody who continues to need that mothering. So the dynamic in the relationship becomes a mothering relationships where the partner is mothering the man in the relationship too, because he's seeking out his mom.
and see that gets me to go back to what I said in the beginning. Like this is the reason why I step very cautiously, right? Just for me, I don't need a mom, right? I want a partner. I want
Oh,
somebody who's
yes, yes, thankfully.
right. You know what I'm saying? And so I know I can be stubborn. So sometimes you may have to put me in my place, right? You know what I'm saying? Not really put me in my place, but be like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, you need to pump your brakes, Tony. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? And and we may have to sit down and have a discussion, not an argument, because I'm not going to argue. Because first time
right,
you argue with me, I'm walking out the door.
yeah,
Don't do that. And I know there's people out there who are like, well, people argue. I don't like arguing. If we are adults, we can talk.
right.
We can, if we need to step away for a little bit to just to catch our breath, to get our mindset back together and come from a place where we're both thinking logically about everything. We can do that, right? I don't do the whole yelling thing. I don't do all of that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
But again, it goes back to where I said before, that is the reason why I step very cautiously when it comes down to that, because I do factor in all of those different things,
Yeah,
right? You know what I'm saying? And I lay it out. I lay it out to see, okay, like where one, I'm trying to figure out where do I fit, right? we live in a day and age now to where men and women are so independent of each other. You got one gender saying, "Oh, we don't need you," and then the other gender is saying, "Oh, we don't need you," and everybody is like, "Oh, if you don't make X amount of dollars, then you can't do that." I'm not with all of that. If we can't build together, I don't want you.
Yeah.
I don't.
There's so much to be like, all of this is super fascinating, right? All of these dynamics. We all
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
a certain dynamic to relationships. And so instead of like judging, we always come from a place of curiosity. And I totally get what you're saying. I don't like shouting or arguing or anything like that. If there's creating a space for conversation, even if we don't agree, if we have different, but like I think where it gets heated is when a partner does not feel heard or validated or acknowledged. So a simple acknowledge and validation of what your partner is saying, and then remaining in curiosity to understand,
Mhm.
and then adding in the self-awareness, because we need to take ownership of our actions. If we, you know, get triggered, or we need to understand where that's coming from so we can share that with our partner and not put all the blame on them for it, right?
Right.
So I think in an ideal world, there's this beautiful space to just have these conversations of curiosity and just understand we were all really just shaped as young kids. We were shaped by all of this, and our parents did the best they could, right, with what they knew. They didn't have all the knowledge we have today. They didn't know what a conscious relationship looked like.
Very true.
Um, so we're just trying to now figure it all out and heal at the same time, and figure out what type of a partner we're attracting, and are they good for us or not good for us. And there's a lot to think about, yes, but I really think if we can come from a place of compassion and curiosity, we'll be able to discern a little more quickly if someone is aligned for us or not.
I like that. I like that. And I want to ask about two different scenarios. Um, One, because I am a men's grief coach, and so leading up to those questions, I do see a lot of relationships, things like that, and I see the common mistakes being made across the board when it comes down to understanding how men are. Now, again, I'm only speaking from a place of being a man, so please feel free to fill in the blanks and let me know, because this allows me to be better, right? In understanding and how I can help not just men but help women as well, understanding how to support each other in the most difficult times of loss,
Mhm.
right? And the first thing that I've always taught after I figured it out was, I started noticing the interruptions, right? The misconceptions that men don't feel, men don't grieve, and things like that. I'm like, no, we do. We feel things very deeply. We just don't know how to express them. So
Yeah.
the way that we express them is it may not look the way that you want it to look. So when I do these workshops with people, I say the most important thing is creating an atmosphere for men to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you say, I want you to come and talk to me, and I take the time to trust you in the state of my vulnerability, and when I do that, the biggest mistake I always see, when I do that and you interrupt me, you make it about you.
Mhm.
Most men shut down, and you'll never get that out of them. Now, here's another thing that I always run across too when it comes down to men. And please, what I'm saying, let me know what you think about any of this that I'm saying. I have a phrase that trust is earned, right? So when we lose someone that's close to us, depending on the relationship that we've had, our world changes, right? And in every variation of that world, of that world, there's a sense of trust that has to be earned in every variation. A lot of people don't understand that. It's so simple, but yet so complicated. Because if I lost my mother, then yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's going to make it hard for me to be around other people in their family, right?
Mhm.
Especially moms, because it's going to remind me of mine. And so how do I gain that trust with that, right? I have to be in a place to where I want to trust.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I'm, that I'm willing to be a part of that. Dads, right? Siblings, you know what I'm saying? And the list goes on and on and on and on, right? And that's the one thing I always say, hey, trust is always earned. No matter what happens, men will revert back to a place of survival. Now, this is another thing that I when I talk with women and things like that, I often say, I often tell them like, if a man has to be hard all the time in a relationship, we will no longer figure out ways of how to provide for you or protect you. We will go back into a place of survival, and in turn, we will begin to handle you. We will begin to handle you because what we're doing is that we're oftentimes, you know what I'm saying, plotting our way out of that relationship. We're looking for an escape route.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with everything that I've said, give me your thoughts on that. Give me
Yeah.
your.
No, I think it is so true. Like, not to say that it's easier on all women to be vulnerable, but it's easier on the majority of women to be vulnerable. And I think the majority of men were taught to protect, defend, and not share our emotions so much, right? So this is like
Mhm.
what you were conditioned to do. So now you're in this relationship and your partner needs emotional intimacy, needs that vulnerability. But like you said, there needs to be that safe space in order for them to feel safe and be able to share. So, like you said, listening to what they're listening without judgment, acknowledging and validating, and then keeping whatever they say in mind for future, right? So if it's, I know this is triggering to me when you leave during an argument, so, or I know that, and the person back could say, well, what do you need during that time? I just need you to reassure me that you love me and that we will talk in a couple of hours. I just need a little bit of space, whatever it is. So you know, there is still that conflict. There's still something to resolve or work through, but you've created this safe space where they see their safe opening up and they know they'll be heard and they know they'll be acknowledged. And then if you can continue to remember that in times they don't have to keep telling you I need this because you remember that they need it and so you do it. I think when that doesn't happen is when we end up going into defense mode or trying to prove that we're right. And that's not what these conversations need to be about. We're all going to have different perspectives on things, but we have to understand we all come from different upbringings and things that shape us differently. So we're not going to have we're not going to see things through the same lens. But can you understand the way I'm looking at this and why? And can I understand how you're looking at things and why? And can we create space for both?
Right. Okay. All right. I guess this leads into my next question. How important is it to have empathy on both ends in a relationship? Because for me, empathy means, understanding a person's journey, understanding, as you said, what they need, and things like that. But I think that comes from a place of observance and empathy as well, right? But also empathy can go depending on who you're talking to. I can see it from both aspects. Empathy can also have an emotional reaction or a logical response depending on the situation and the individual. So how important is when you put all of those dynamics in together, how important is it to have empathy in that relationship on both ends?
Well, for me, it's definitely one of my core values. I'm like an empath, so I definitely feel everything everybody's feeling. Like even if they're not closely connected to me, I feel it. So I certainly feel things in a relationship. So to me, that would be super important. Now there are people who don't. There are couples who don't even care about vulnerability or care about opening up in that way. It's more functional or transactional, whatever the relationship is based on, right? So, but if you are empathetic yourself, it's most likely you're going to need someone who has that level of empathy as well. And I think when we with the empathy, I think we need to make sure we're meeting people where they are and not trying to interject our own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs on them. We have to truly understand where are they in this, not where do we see them, right? So really getting into the feelings and really what are you feeling here and why, and being able to hear them, listen to them, and give them what they need in that moment, and vice versa.
Wow. That is a lot there. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start to wrap this up and everything. And I want to say, wow, thank you for sharing your knowledge with me. I've learned a lot. Hopefully, the audience is taking notes and everything. We've touched on grief in the relationship. I have the relationship expert here, Holly, and she's just been dropping gems upon gems upon gems. So if you just now tuning in, you didn't catch it all, go back and check it out, right? You know what I'm saying? And her information is down below. Now, with that being said, Holly, how can people find you?
Yes, they can find me at my website, www.loveprescriptions.com, and all of my socials are linked on there.
Okay. And here's my favorite part, right? I used to ask people, what could you leave the audience with? But I got hit with this question a few days ago. And so now I got it. I'm asking everybody this. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh gosh. This just could depend on the day, but oh my gosh, what would my superpower be? I think it would really be to touch as many lives as possible and help people build a strengthen the relationship with themselves so they can, um, you know, so they can have better relationships with others. So if I could just kind of sprinkle some magic around the world and that magic just created it for them.
I love that. I definitely love that. And so, with that being said, we're going to wrap this up. Holly, thank you for coming in and just having fun with this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. It was a blast. I do enjoy talking with you, and and look forward to many more. Right? But there's so many things going on right now, and for everyone who is tuning in right now. If you haven't already, and if you have been, I see you guys over there on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. I see you guys over there. So if this is your first time tuning in, if you haven't already, the information down there, scrolling across the bottom, the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast on YouTube. Go over there, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But also, all my socials are down there too, the website, etc. Go to check those out. Follow me on my socials. We got a lot of great things coming. We got the conference coming up. We got the men's group that's coming up on the 11th. And so, guys, if you're tuning in, and you're struggling with loss, come. It's a virtual / in-person group, and it's free for you to attend. We got a lot of other things coming up, and with that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. And again, if you're driving around in the snow and you're in Colorado, please be careful. We want everybody to get home safely. And remember, take your time. All right, guys, we're going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Thanks, Tony.